Welcome back, everyone, to the GDFL podcast. This is hosted by yours truly, the Commissioner Andrew Korn. I'm currently recording this on Christmas Eve. It's about 11:45 in the morning. I'm a bit hungover, but I am dedicated to getting this out to the people. And also, I just wanted to challenge myself and go through the initiative of doing this whole podcast for the whole season. I just want to make sure I'm accomplishing my goal with that. Really, the only week I didn't do it was the week I was on vacation, and I'm just kind of proud of myself for setting this goal for myself and sticking to it. And without further ado, let's jump into the action. But before I do that, I just want to shout out a longtime listener of the podcast, my girlfriend, Crystal Lynn. She won her first fantasy football championship in her first ever league. I have her squad here on my screen. She had Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Devon Achan, Joe Mixon, Brenton Strange, Josh Downs, Kylie Fairbairn, and the Colts defense was the winning squad for her. And she drafted this team all on her own. I mean, the only advice I told her, but before she did any of her drafts, was just take Achan. You gotta just trust me. He's the man. And she listened to me, and she got rewarded with the fantasy championship. So very proud of her winning her first ever championship in her first ever league. So congrats to you. And I'm gonna switch up the order of how I'm doing things today. I don't really have much of a special segment, but I really just wanted to put out some Jared Goff propaganda. And right now, he is not getting the respect I think he deserves in the MVP conversation. I really think that his name should be just right there with uh, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. What Goff is doing right now is he is putting together an MVP caliber season. I know people are going to knock him for one bad game when he threw five picks against the Texans, and he kind of unfairly got taken out of the conversation after that, which if you really take out that one game, he has five picks across 12 other games. 14, no, 14 other games because they played 15 already because we're 13 and 2. Yeah, so he's the quarterback of the team with the best offense in the league. And right now he has a passer rating of 112.2. If we were to compare that to historical MVP seasons by quarterbacks, 112.2 would be the 11th best passer rating ever for an MVP season. Jared Goff straight up is having an MVP season. I don't think I need to convince any of you of it because we all live in Michigan or we're all from Michigan and we're big Lions fans. But I really do believe that Jared Goff should be well in the MVP conversation more so than he currently is. Anyway, just wanted to ramble about Jared Goff a little bit before we get into our action. But yeah, love Jared Goff, best quarterback in the Lions history. Go Lions. So I'm looking at our matchups from this past week. I'm going to break down the playoff matchups a little bit further. So I beat Ryan 156.5 to 132. And Levi beat Mark 159.3 to 153.7. So it's setting up a Stink Kings Holsteins showdown in the championship. Across the other league and some of our other matchups, Stun beat Chaz 148 to 110. Shrew beat Trevor 122 to 115. Sokol beat Jake 77 to 67. And then Beans beat Logan 132 to 105. And really, just I'll be diving deeper into the matchups that are important later. But for the teams in the losers bracket or who have been eliminated, Stun beating Chaz, pretty relevant. But at least Stun has some solace knowing that he would have lost to me in the semifinals had he started Cooper Rush. So maybe he gets $60 for finishing third. Is really the biggest difference in the outcomes of a season. But I guess he does also have the 108 now. So I guess there's however you want to look at it, I guess it's not the end of the world that Stun didn't start Cooper Rush because not a ton would have changed for him. However, if Stun would have won, then we would have been me versus Mark in the championship. And so that decision not to start Cooper Rush definitely affected the outcome of these playoffs. And really, you could probably do that for any singular decision for any regular season start, have one start be different. The entire playoff outcomes are different. So it's really hard to just pinpoint it on one random decision made in one starting lineup one week. But it's something that's just fascinating for me to think about. Yeah, and then again, Beans put up 132, which would have been enough to beat Ryan, but not enough to beat any of the other playoff teams. But again, Beans' team is looking pretty good with the way they've been playing at the end of this year. And then so I'm gonna break down my matchup with Ryan. I won 156.52 to 132. I really thought after the 1 o'clock slate that Ryan had me beat. Uh, I was sweating. The players that I had playing at 1 o'clock didn't perform particularly strong. So I had Nico Collins play Saturday, and he had 9.5. Aaron Rodgers and Brees Hall had 12.8 and 11.5 respectively. Devontae Smith only had 8, and then Kyler Murray had 20.38, which some of that was helped with a last minute drive, which did end up being a pretty big difference maker. But really, after Devontae Smith dropped that pass against the Commanders on that third down, it ended up being almost like a 9 point swing for Ryan, just because Jaden Daniels was able to get 9 more fantasy points. And I really thought that that was going to be the death of me, was that Jaden Daniels drive. Both him and Burrow had huge days. Burrow also had a free play touchdown to Chase when it was kind of the game was out of reach. So that also helped Ryan quite a bit. But yeah, so on Ryan's side of the ledger for those 1 o'clock games, he did have those three Bears. And let me tell you, him having all those pieces of the Bears offense really made that game very unenjoyable for me to watch. I really enjoyed watching the Lions beat the shit out of the Bears again. But like watching pretty much either Swift, Keenan Allen, or Roma Dunze just got the ball a lot that game and not being able to do anything about it. Just like his team's gained more and more points. Something I was going to mention on the show last week that I forgot to was there was a rumor swirling around the GDFL that Ryan is actually a closeted Bears fan, and he's just compensating for something by saying "fuck the Bears" in our league group chat as frequently as he has. I'm going to say I am not the originator of this idea. I'm not going to spill the beans on who. Maybe Ryan will be able to figure it out. But there is some rumors that Ryan is actually a closeted Bears fan, so keep that in mind for whenever you're making trades with Ryan in the future. But yeah, anyway, going back to like our actual matchup, in the 4 o'clock slate, and really for like most of the 4 o'clock slate, every time I check up on my scores, like Ryan still had a pretty steady lead over me. It really wasn't until the second half when Jefferson really started to pop off, having his like 40-yard touchdown end up being the dagger. And then Achan also housed a 50-yard touchdown at the end of the game against San Francisco that also ended up being very clutch for me. This game was a 24 point victory for me, but it was way closer than the score indicated. Like I really genuinely thought Ryan was going to win for most of the afternoon. But Jefferson, I needed a hero, and Jefferson and Achane were my heroes. I've been riding with them in a lot of leagues this year, and my boys pulled together it for me. So one start decision I was considering was Jerome Ford over Devontae Smith. That was one I almost made in the championship last year, but decided to go with Devontae Smith over Jerome Ford, and that ended up costing me a championship. And so with Nick Chubb's injury and a favorable matchup against the Bengals, I thought maybe I'll start Jerome Ford, but it's like, no, I'm gonna start Devontae Smith again. I'm not gonna do that twice. It's not gonna happen twice to me. And I thought it was gonna cost me not starting Jerome Ford over Devontae Smith. Luckily, it didn't end up mattering, but that was one that's on my back burner and still under consideration for this next week. I wanted to start Jameis Winston, but with him getting benched and he's actually injured supposedly, didn't really have a choice but to start Aaron Rodgers. Uh, have to start him next week too. I don't particularly love it, but you gotta do what you gotta do. And then on Ryan's side of the ledger, he put together about as good of a lineup as he can. Kareem Hunt did have a touchdown and ended up having a pretty solid day. I don't think it would have been enough to make a difference in this matchup. But I mean, I really look at the season Ryan had. I mean, Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow both were top five quarterbacks this year. Both should anchor this team for years to come. I just think he didn't completely squander an opportunity in the playoffs, but I really think he probably should have made more of a push to build a stronger team this year. He was sitting on so much draft capital, and like he really could have like bought players that were both helpful this year and in the future with those draft picks. Because I really don't think you can bank on Jane Daniels and Joe Burrow playing a healthy 17 games every season. I really don't. Quarterback injuries just happen so frequently. Like I keep track of like historically how many quarterbacks you need to get through a season. I think on average I've needed about four to get through one of these super flex leagues or a two QB league. And really, if you look at every team across the league and how often they've had both of their quarterbacks stay healthy for an entire season, I'm sure very few of us have had that happen. And you just never know what's going to happen in the future. I'm always pushing for winning right now. I'm thankful Ryan didn't because it he could have definitely put together a stronger team with a lot of that draft capital he had. But he's planning on building for 2025 and beyond. He really didn't think that this year was a contending year for him and really never swayed his mind on that too much with the moves he made. So love you, Ryan. I think you probably should have tried a little bit harder to contend this year, but hey, to each their own. That's what makes Dynasty fun is like we each can have our own strategy, our own philosophy, our own process, and then whatever happens as a result is whatever happens. And then speaking of process, we have Levi, the process Hubbard, coming down with a huge win, 159.26 over Mark to one Mark's 153.7. Really, the story of Levi's day was Jonathan Taylor absolutely popping off. He had 40 fantasy points. He had two super long touchdown runs. What a day for Jonathan Taylor. Anthony Richardson had 20 fantasy points despite only attempting 11 passes. Another great performance from Richardson for him. James Cook, formerly of Mark's team, put 26 up on Mark, and that's got to sting a little bit knowing one of your former players helped deliver the dagger to your season. But really, Levi's starting lineup had a bunch of guys who had pretty solid days. Uh, Hunter Henry had it wasn't quite garbage time because they were down like 10 in the fourth quarter. Hunter Henry had a touchdown late, though, that ended up making a huge difference for him. And then the other one was Rico Dowdle got subbed out for Zeke at the 1 yard line so Zeke could have a touchdown. And if Rico Dowdle would have stayed on that field for that 1 yard touchdown run, then Mark would have advanced to the finals over Levi. I'm sure if we were to go through and really pinpoint, nitpick any touchdowns or whatever in each of these matchups, things would definitely be different. But yeah, huge win for Levi. I really didn't think at the beginning of the season he had a team capable of making the championship. But hey, I think this like goes to show that any team in this league can rebuild their team in one off season if you truly want it. Like the starting position of where Levi's team was at the beginning of the offseason until now, it is night and day how much better it got. Like he made some very aggressive trades and then like gave up the idea of having like this young super team that they all come together and age at once. He realized that dream might not happen and bought into some older players, bought into a Joe Mixon. He traded for Jacoby Myers. He bought Deontay Johnson at one point in the offseason. Like he was willing to make sacrifices to what his like ideal plan was. It's built up a strong running back army, and it's going to be a very, very good matchup next week. I'm very proud of Levi for being able to put this together. And then for Mark, uh, it's tough. Like he had a great week, and really 153.7 should win just about every week. Like Rico Dowdle's the only one. I guess Tua like had games below what their projections were. I guess Drake London did too, but it wasn't that much worse. I know both DK Metcalf and Devo had solid games, but based on what the matchups were for Mark, like I really don't think I would have made any different changes to a starting lineup. There's sometimes you end up at the short end of the stick, and that's just what happened to Mark this time. That's twice now he's been eliminated from the playoffs in a 159 to 153 match, and it's got to sting, especially when you're the one seed and you like built this team, built it for this year, and just to come up just short has gotta sting a little bit. Luckily for Mark, I think a lot of these pieces will still be good next year and well into the future. I really thought Gibbs was going to be the league winner, and he had a fantastic day. Like Gibbs still had 23 fantasy points. Derrick Henry did his thing having 20. It's just Mark just came up just short. And so we're taking a look at the updated draft order with the results of both Ryan and Mark losing. Ryan has clinched both I guess clinched is the wrong word, but he now has both the 109 and the 110. And so Ryan ends up with the third, ninth, and 10th overall picks in this upcoming draft. And so he'll be able to add some much needed flex options to that starting lineup. Good season for Ryan. Like again, he has the foundation set, he has the pieces in place. He just needs to get running backs and receivers added to this roster and build a more competitive team. Definitely has the draft capital to do that. And then biggest loser of all of this is Trevor with Levi's pick. So Trevor traded Damian Pierce for Levi's 2025 first about a year and a half ago. I think when Trevor made that trade, he thought Levi's pick was going to be pretty easily like a top 3 to 5 pick. And sucks for Trevor, but it's going to end up being either pick 11 or 12. And I don't really think it matters a ton for Trevor at this point, which one it is. Like, I think he still got the better end of that deal, but it's got to sting a little bit knowing like you thought you were getting the pick of a bad team, and it just didn't end up that way. And then Sokol also is going to get my pick. So he's going to end up with 2, 7, then 11 or 12. It's really fascinating looking at the first round, like where these picks end up lying. Because it's like you could really make a debate for any of these teams of which team truly has the best set of picks. Because Trevor's has one, which one inherently just is going to have more value versus like 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. But also is going to end up with 11 or 12. So he's going to have like 1 and 11 or 12. Sokol has 2, 7, and then 11 or 12, which again, both very valuable picks. Beans has 4 and 5, which you can make a case like for like that being the best set of picks. And then Ryan has 3, 9, and 10. Like I really think you could make a case for any of those four teams who can really control the first round of our draft that they have the best set of draft picks for this upcoming draft. And who knows how many of these teams actually make these picks in these slots. These trades happen in this league all the time. We'll see what happens. And that leads me to what's going to be coming up in this GDFL championship. We have the Canton Stink Kings taking on the Grand Shavers Holsteins. Big matchup between Corn and Levi this week. I guess I'm talking about myself in the third person now, but I realized that Levi is the league hero, and he's probably going to have the support of most of the GDFL in this matchup, which I'm fine with. I am embracing my role as the league villain in this matchup. Uh, Not a ton I can do about that. This is Levi's storybook season, and the only thing in between him and the championship is the big bad commissioner and evil commissioner taking him down. Don't love being the villain. It's a Levi story. One of us does have to win. I guess we could tie. That'd be wild. But one of us is going to win a championship. It's either going to be a story of redemption for me after losing such a heartbreaking game in the finals last year, or the Cinderella story of Levi coming from the bottom all the way to the championship. So super excited for it. One thing I don't really appreciate is there's going to be games being played over 5 out of the next 6 days because there's 2 games on Christmas tomorrow. There's the Thursday night game, there's the Saturday games, there's the Sunday games, and then the Monday night game. And we're going to have players pretty much playing each of those days. So it's going to be a very drawn out championship week. Don't love that. NFL is going to do what it's going to do and try and make that money grab by playing games on Christmas. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to be facing off against Levi. If I have to lose to someone in the finals, I have no issue losing to Levi if that's going to be what the outcome is. He's worked his ass off this offseason to get himself in this position, so it's really hard to root against that. But yeah, I'm embracing being the villain here. We'll see what happens. I feel like I had something else I wanted to talk about with this matchup, but I don't really remember. I guess there's a lot of players we've traded between each other. I think was something I was going to bring up because Brees Hall originally started on his team. He's traded me. I didn't realize Aaron Jones, he traded me during the season. I traded him Hunter Henry during the season. So there's definitely some pieces we had traded back and forth that will be starting in the championship matchup. But yeah, I'm excited. I think the league should be excited. I think it's going to be a very close matchup. I think when I looked at the season averages of our projected starters going into this one, it was like 145 to 138. So I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty good championship matchup. Uh, I really don't want to pick against the Holsteins either. I'm not going to make any matchup predictions. I'll let you guys decide for yourselves. Maybe we'll run a group meet poll of who are you rooting for in this championship. I imagine it's be very heavy in the Holsteins' favor. But yeah, I'm excited. I really wish I saw the sleeper projections before this show, but the sleeper does the thing where they don't make their matchups final until the Wednesday after the playoff matchups or after matchups have happened. So it is what it is. I don't know what sleeper projects for either of us. I guess I could have gone through and like manually added it, but I didn't really feel like doing that as prep work for this show. And yeah, this is all I have for you all today. So Levi, may the better team win. Go Sting Kings, go Holsteins. Merry Christmas to everyone. Thank you all for listening. and I will see you next time.